Let's see. I think I am live. Listen, you would think after me doing this for a while now, because I know that I have some time in the game now as far as going live on YouTube, or going live anywhere for that matter. You would think that I will have this thing down packed, okay? But I still have technical difficulties, as again, I am a one woman show. Listen, hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Hood Parenting Live. Listen, this show normally goes live on a Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. Now, today I recognize that it is almost, it's not 6 p.m. Let's just say that. It's not 6 p.m., but it is on a Sunday that this is live. And so if you are catching me live, hello and welcome. I'm your host, Yashika Foster. Now, as you know, if this is not your first time here, let me tell you. So your girl is a whole mama. Okay. I'm a whole mama. All right. And I have an 11-year-old. And so today there was like some conflict of schedule. And that's all I can really say. Now, let me make sure I'm live. Okay. There was literally conflict of schedule. And so because there was a little conflict of schedule, I had to start this live a little bit later than usual. Okay. And so, and then of course I have to wrap it up. But nevertheless, we are here. And listen, this series right here, I started it last week. Okay. Now, I call this one Resiliency in Motion. Resiliency in Motion. Okay. And so last week was the introduction to Resiliency in Motion. And here's why I decided to do this series, right? A lot of times we will hear people tell us that because we have been through certain things in life, it automatically makes us have like a dark cloud or a bad check mark that you can't erase over your head. And one of the things that I gave example of when I did this, when I introduced this, was when I talked about my time as a, I was married and divorced twice. I've been married and divorced twice. And so as a married and divorced woman, depending on who's looking at that, they will look at that and take the negative out of the divorce as if to say, well, you haven't figured it out right. So me being a marriage and family counselor, and when I have a life coach certification, people will look at that and say, well, how can you tell me? And it's like, okay, so you don't think that I'm the perfect person to tell you. However, they will try to automatically make what the way that they would take it in a negative way, as opposed to them looking at myself being married twice and saying, well, you know what? That woman right there, she got two men to marry her in this world, honey. She got two men to marry her in this world. And to me, if that is your goal, if that is something that you desire, of course, you just can't be out here marrying people. But what I am saying is that we have to reframe our stuff. We have to learn how to reframe the way we look at things, because if you look at that in a very negative way, then anybody who approaches me, or whether it's from a relationship standpoint with a man, or even someone who is seeking me out in counsel, if they look at my divorces as a bad thing, then they can't pull the positive away from it. And so here in this Resiliency in Motion series, I literally take those things that we've been through and I help us to reshape them, to reframe them, and take the positive out of it, because that's exactly what it is, right? It's allowing us to say, you know what, I've been through these things, and so I'm going to take it and use it to my advantage. I'm going to take these things and use it to my advantage. Hello and welcome. As you come into the room, make sure you introduce yourself. Thank you so much for joining me. Hood Parenting Live. Listen, I was supposed to start this thing at 6 o'clock, but of course, mommy do these calls. And if you have any questions or any comments or anything like that as you are coming into this live, go ahead and drop them down below. And if I do not answer them here, I will go through and go back through the comments and all that good stuff. And I could possibly do a live on your particular question. And so, yeah, so today we are covering resiliency. We are still continuing on with the Resiliency in Motion series. And today I wanted to talk about something that is, how do I put it? When we talk about not having a parent, okay? For me, I only can talk about it from the perspective of not having a father. And to just give you a kind of an overview of my life, I'm a 52-year-old woman. I have seen my father 3 times in life. And by the time I seen him on the fourth time, I was 20 years of age. And that was when we were burying him in California. And so as far as in person, like seeing my father in person, I've only seen him 4 times in person, 3 of those times which he was alive, and 1 of those times he was not. And so that was 32 years ago. That was 32 years ago in which he transitioned. A lot of times I have been, I'm not going to say a lot because it has not happened to me personally, but I have heard situations in which people have been through those type of experiences, right? Especially a woman. And I'm going to only speak from a woman's perspective because I am a woman, because I have heard men say it. But for me, so let me just go about it. I've been in situations where people, men, will look at my not having a father around or not being raised with a father as having negative connotations to it. In other words, they would take it and say, well, that's why you're so this and that's why you're so that and blah, 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 because you didn't have a father. And so for me, I did not understand. And shall I say, I do not understand when people say that, because for me, I don't see that as a, well, that makes you less than. Because when they say those type of statements, well, because you didn't have this, that makes you this, it's automatically they're discrediting who you are because they look at it as from a place of you didn't have, so therefore you're not whole. And I don't see that as such, because for me, not having a father in my life, it taught me to be more protective of myself and the things around me. It allowed me to be more like, my senses were more heightened, right? Because see, here's the thing. I'm from Detroit. So you already know, if you know anything about Detroit, that is the city that keep on giving, honey. Ain't no telling, listen, I got stories. Ain't nothing like playing outside. Ain't nothing like playing outside, like good old summer day, playing outside. Next thing you know, people get to fighting right there in front of you, and next thing you know, they pull out, they shoot 'em up, bang bangs, and you're like, oh, well, I think it's time for us to go in the house. That's a city like Detroit, honey. That is a city like Detroit. Let me drink wine. Let me drink wine. So when you see things from that perspective, it's like, okay, now I know. Like, in other words, I have to be able to protect myself. My mother gave birth to me. My mother and father were married. However, they were never a couple, right? They were married in the 70s, and you guys know about the whole shotgun weddings back then, right? And so they were never married. And so my mother raised me as from a perspective of a teenage mom. So when it came to her, like, protecting me or shielding me, she was able to shield me from certain things as long as I was in the house. But baby, once I went outside them doors, okay, I did what most city kids did. We went and found trouble. Wherever there was trouble, baby, we found it. Okay, I especially found it. If there was trouble to be had, I found it. Okay, it may not have been next door, it may not have been out front of my house, but if it was around the corner or up the block, or because I was curious, I was a very curious kid. I was a very, I think the word is rambunctious kid, and so there were so many things that I was just like, trying to understand. And so part of that also is from me not having a father. And so, because I did not have one of my parents, it put me on a journey to actually figure out who I was and what I was good at. Because if I felt like in my mind, if I knew more about that side of my family, then I could know if I'm good, if what I'm good at. So, for example, say that I found out that I don't know, my father was somebody that was in a royal family, or somebody that was a entertainer. Let's just say entertainer. Say I found out, because my daddy was a pretty boy, so let's just say that my because he reminded me of the elder barges. Okay, and if y'all don't know anything about the elder barge, I need y'all to go back to the 1970s. I mean, excuse me, 1990s and stuff, and Google El DeBarge. All right. The DeBarges is what they're called. El DeBarge, Chico DeBarge, and all of them. Okay. That's who my father looked like. So in saying that, if I had found out that my daddy was part of that family, then in my mind, I'd have been thinking to myself, well, girl, that means you might be able to sing. So maybe you should go out there and be a singer. Okay, because see, that's what part it is when you don't know that part of you, when you don't know who that person is. And so at that same point, those were things that it kept me pushing. It kept me striving to figure things out. And so because I was always trying to figure things out, it put me in this mode of always trying to learn new skills and develop new things because I didn't know what I was supposed to learn and what I wasn't supposed to learn. I didn't know who I was and what I was good at. And so in order to figure those things out when you are missing a parent or when you don't have a parent or any parents that you like it's one thing. Listen, here's the thing. When I say parent, I'm not defining who raised you. I'm not defining in that way. I'm talking about legitimately a child. Now, this is not a one size fit all. This is not a, every child will go through this. This is not that. This is my experience as a child that grew up without having a father present in my home. My father present in my home. And so for me, I seen a lot of, people, my cousins, my families, everybody else, they knew their father. They at least knew their father. Like I could identify all my cousins. I could identify at least what their father looked like, right? They couldn't do that for me. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, no, my mother knew what my father looked like, but unless there was an old picture laying around somewhere, no one knew what my father looked like if it was my cousins because they were kids like I was. And so it was that part of me that was always missing. But I had to learn to take those things and turn them into positive things, not the fact of missing a father. No, because nothing is positive about not having your parents, regardless, right? And that's just all I'm gonna say about that. Nothing is positive about that. Now, could we go ahead and say, well, what if your parents are doing this to you? Yes, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about good old parents that are taking their parental skills or their parental job at least halfway right? I'm talking about those people. I'm talking about the ones who are trying to do what a parent's supposed to do by societal's definition. That's all I'm saying. And so every child deserves that. And so in my mind, I felt like, I deserve that like everybody else. And so when I didn't have those things, it allowed me to dig deeper in terms of who I was. And at the same time, it taught me to be a little bit more protective of myself. It taught me to be more guarded when it came to certain things because I knew that I didn't have a strong presence of a male around me. And you got, and here's the thing: the world knows that the most vulnerable person in the world is a young girl without a father in her life. She is the most vulnerable person in the world, regardless of race. All right, when you don't have a presence of a man in your life and you are just with females, you are like prey in the wild to predators. You really are. You are prey in the wild to predators because in their mind, who's gonna check them, right? Because you have a mother or you have someone that's not a threat to anybody else. And so you are just, prey in the wild. And so for me, it actually allowed me to become like strong in areas. It heightened my senses when it came to me protecting myself. It heightened my senses when it came to me being aware of my surroundings. It allowed me to notice bullshit quicker than I probably would have ever noticed bullshit before. That's what it did. So, for example, I would talk to my father much on the phone. And this isn't to bash him in any kind of way, shape, or form, because trust me, he helps me out more now than he did when he was on earth. But what I will say is nothing, we can't change what it is. And so I say that to say that I recall times where he would say things to me in terms of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, when it came to me starting to date men and understand men and try and get in relationships with men, I feel like those type of lessons that I went through, or those type of experiences that I went through with him, were lessons for relationships. And so when I became active in dating, and then I, got a husband, and my next husband and all that, and all the men in between, well, it's one of those things where I can look at it and say, well, you know what? I've been here before. Because as a young woman, I'm able to detect bullshit on the play. That's what I'm gonna call it. I'm able to detect bullshit on the play. hmm That's what I will say. And that's one of the things when I hear men say, well, because you didn't have a father, this is why you're like that. These are the men that I automatically know that I have to stay away from. Why? Because I know those men are, I call bullshit on the play, because in their mind, I'm less than. In their mind, because I don't have a standard of what they feel a man should be like, or a man should be, I don't have a standard of what I think a man should be. They feel as though I'm going to always challenge their manhood. And Lord knows that's anyway, that's not what this is about. But what I will say is, when it comes to things that we've been through, when it comes to experiences that we've had, one of the things that I teach in resiliency as a certified resiliency instructor, in this series of Resiliency in Motion, how do you take those things that you've been through and say, I am not going to allow them to dictate to dictate who I am. And even if it's part of who I am, it doesn't make it bad. Like when I think about people saying things to women specifically about not having fathers or men in their lives, like I said, it's almost like as if they're using it as a weapon, right? And I don't understand how that's a weapon, because when we see when I'm approaching people, men especially, who did not have mothers in their lives, I have empathy. Like I'm very, very like I feel for them, because in my mind it's like wow, because I know what a mother does. I know the nurturing that a mother does, and I feel regardless male or woman, that is something that everybody should have. Just like that protection, that safety, I feel like every child should have that. And so anytime I meet someone that didn't have a particular gender or parent in their life, whatever it may be, and it's not because it was intentional that way, or was because of things happening, I feel something in my heart for them, because I understand life. I understand that these are things. So for me, those people are not like I just understand, because why? I understand that everybody deserves these things. It does not make them less or more or better. It doesn't make them anything. It's just that for me, I feel as though I understand their pain. I understand where they're coming from. And so once we take those things that we've been through, that society, the world, whoever wants to take it and try to turn it and make it into negative, we have to reframe that. We have to reframe how we view our lives, how we view the things that we've been through, and how we use them moving forward, right? Because I know that for me, even as a woman in my 50s now, I was telling someone this conversation. I was talking to someone about this the other day. When they asked me about, I was talking to someone and they asked me, was I afraid to say something? It was like, well, are you afraid to? And I said, do I look like the type of woman that would be afraid to say anything? Okay. And then I said that, and then I also backed it up and I said, I am a woman who walks this earth alone. In other words, I don't have a husband. I mean, like I said, I mean, I had some husbands, okay, but they ain't here no more, okay? So I've been walking this earth without a male figure in my life for the majority of my life, right? If I didn't have a father in my life, and then for cumulative total, I was married for about 15 years cumulative total. I'm 52. So in terms of walking this life, I've walked this life in my own, like in my own solo path, than I have with somebody that were a protector in some sort, right? And so because of that, I have to be okay with understanding that this is who I am. And so I literally appreciate those times in my life. I literally appreciate, like, now that I'm here, because we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know how life is going to turn out. We don't know what we're being prepared for. We don't know what we're being set up to do, or any of those things. But what we do know is at the time that we're going through it, we don't understand. But now that I am a mother, and I am a single mother, and I have a daughter, I feel like I have what it takes in order to keep her safe in this world, because she's adopted. And so because she's adopted, there's no male around. There's no, no husband around, especially because of the way that I got her. It wasn't a planned adoption. And so it's one of those things where I at the same time I worry for her. I worry for her because I'm looking at her like, I need you to like be okay. And so I find myself talking to her in ways where I'm talking to her as a kid, but also in a way where I have to get her to understand that I can't, I don't need you walking through when I'm not with you, for example. I don't need you walking around the school or walking around the store looking down at your cell phone and you're a kid, because just like that, somebody can snatch you up, right? And so for me, I'm always on that protective mode, because I'm like, these are, you have to know, these are the things that you have to be like ready for. My mother didn't have the tools to prepare me for life because she was on a 16. And so, but for me, I had to experience a lot of things in order for me to feel like, okay, I know what to look for when dangers approach, like danger, danger, right? Not, like danger, danger, like it's a whole thing. Like I'm that woman that goes into a restaurant. If I'm not with a male companion, I'm gonna always sit down and I'm gonna have my eyes at the door, because I need to know who coming in and who going out. Okay, I need to know what they doing up front. Okay, I need to see what they doing up there. Who that up there? I need to see. Look, I need to be able to tell her. Look, I'm the person that can tell everybody about what's going on around. I can come into a room and I do one scan and I can tell you who in the room. I can tell you who not in the room. I can tell you what people got on. Listen, I can tell you who all the beautiful men are. What all the beautiful men are. One scan of the room, I can tell you all those things. Now, could that be a little bit of my military training? Absolutely, could be a military thing too as well. However, those skills, honey, I started those being from the hood, being from Detroit. Okay. And so that, and being without a father, coming from a young mother, I had to always be on point. My survival skills are high, right? I'm not saying that I'm, like I can't be touched. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that it'll be hard for somebody to catch me just slipping. Okay. It will be hard for somebody to catch me slipping. And I think that when we start looking at things like that in the world that we've been through and take them and reshape them, we can appreciate them. Because like I said, sitting here now as a single mom with an 11-year-old daughter, like I feel that I'm prepared. I feel that I'm more prepared than my parents would have been had they been together back in the 70s when I was born. Because they didn't have the skills that we have now. They don't have like any of that, because they were young. They were young. A lot of things they didn't know. And so I feel like I can teach those things to my daughter. Now, is she gonna listen? That's another thing, honey. Now there's a saying. Y'all know there's a saying that say you could take to a horse to the pond to drink water. Okay, but that don't mean they're gonna drink the water. It goes something like that. It goes something like that. You can take the water, you can take the horse to the water, but that don't mean they're gonna drink the water. Something like that. Or you could teach a man to fit you, something like that, y'all. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You could take a man, you could take the horse to the water, but you can't force him to drink it. And that's just that simple. You cannot force him to drink it. And so that's how I see my daughter. I feel like when it comes to her, same thing with what it was with my adult sons now. I teach them these things, right? Hood parenting. We teach our kids these things. We want them to be able to say that. And people are probably saying, well, why does it need to tell this subject? Because I think that people have this thing in their life where they feel like because they don't have something, that they're automatically starting life at a level, because they're making people make them feel, they're allowing people to make them feel that way. So in other words, I understand that there is a such thing called poverty levels. And so if you don't have certain resources in your life, yes, you're going to have certain disadvantages. But there are literal people that I have talked to that will tell me, well, my parents was this, or this, and that. And so they'll still tell themselves that this is the reason why life is like this, because of this happening to them 30, 40 years ago. And I'm not saying that this isn't true, but what I'm saying is that How do we take those things and reshape them? And so as we move forward in resiliency in motion here on Hood Parents Alive, that's exactly what I want to encourage you to do. Take those things that you've been through, because like I said, you don't know what you're being prepared for. You don't know what it is that you're being trained for. All you know is you're going through some things. But what I do know is that the things that you're going through prepares you for an even bigger thing later, right? Prepares you for something even greater later. And you already know, listen, when you that resiliency, right? That resiliency is a muscle. And so the more and more things happening, the more and more you build that muscle up, you'll be surprised of the things that you are able to do and accomplish, because you realize that, you know what, this is nothing. I've been training for this. I've been prepared for this. And so in my mind, all the things that I've been through in life, as I sit here, not knowing that I would be here in life, not knowing that my status would be what it is, not knowing that I would be walking in the path that I'm knowing. I knew it was something. Okay, I knew I was gonna be great, honey. Let's be clear there. I knew I was gonna be great. I know I've always known I'm gonna be great. Okay, I always know I'm gonna be great, but I just didn't know in what area. And so as I go through this, and as I teach these lessons, and as I talk about the things in the hood that helps us today and helps us as parents, the things that I were taught, the things, those skills that I know that are useful, right? Because we can't take all the things that were learned and leave them behind, because what I know is that that resiliency that I learned that started from a young girl back in Detroit, it helped me to go through life. It helped me to retire after 25 years in the military. It helped me to leave home as an 18-year-old girl, not knowing what I was getting myself into. It helped me to do the things that I've done, and I've done some amazing things. I've done some amazing things, but what I do know is that that resiliency that I learned young, those things that I've been through were the things that help catapult me, help shape me, help build me, help nurture me into the person that I am today. And so that's what we have to start doing, taking those things and turning them into positive. I didn't say the situation was positive. I'm saying we're taking those things and return them just a little, and we're making them into things that's positive. Because why? They're building us for something better. And it's just that simple. Even when we don't see the bigger plan, I'm telling you, there's a bigger plan. And so, listen, I hope that you guys, if you are here today, I hope that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification so when your girl goes live, because listen, I'm gonna always try to go live at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But again, sometimes things do come up and I have to adjust it, but I will get close to that time as best possible. And in a perfect world, I'll let everyone know in advance. But bear with me, bear with me. And so again, this is Hood Parents Alive, and I hope you guys have gotten something from this. And again, if there's something you want to discuss or something you want me to talk about or make a video about, go ahead and drop a comment below, and you can reach out to me at hoodparenting73@gmail.com. Okay, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.